On today's show, the NBA All-Star starters have been revealed, and Joel Embiid was not one of the 5 in the East. Did he get snubbed, and is there a way to fix it? Plus, we pick our All-Star reserves, and the Celtics and Knicks go into overtime. All of that and much more on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA Friday. I'm Wes Goldberg here with Adam Mata as we come to you every Friday here on the Locked On NBA feed. However you might be tuning in, YouTube, Odyssey, your favorite podcast app. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. We're going to talk about Luka's injury and a fun overtime game between the Knicks and the Celtics in a bit. We'll also get to our all-star reserves, but let's begin with the starters that were revealed on Thursday. In the East, we have Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Jason Tatum. And in the West, we've got Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, Zion Williamson, LeBron, and Nikola Jokic. So the big news here is that Joel Embiid did not make it as an all-star starter in the Eastern Conference. That's been met with a lot of debate because, well, Joel Embiid is second in the league in scoring. He's having an awesome season for the Sixers, and he's just great. And it's Joel Embiid, and it feels like he should be a starter. There's a lot of things to get into here, but where do you come down on this, Adam?
I mean, it's easy. This one's an easy one. Joel Embiid is probably a top 2 candidate for MVP. I think it's him and Jokic, who, by the way, play on Saturday. And I would not be surprised if Philadelphia won that game if we see the conversation for Joel Embiid as the MVP favorite pick up a little bit of steam. I'm not saying it'll be over, but I think it would pick up a lot of steam, especially if he plays well. And yet he's not starting, and it's because of this crazy idea about trying to put things into, positions, front court and what have you. I think you could have fit a reasonable roster together that would have included him and the 3 forwards that got ahead of him, Giannis, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum. I don't think it's weird to consider those guys 2, 3, 4, especially when we're talking about an all-star game. So I do think that the NBA got this wrong.
Easy enough to why was Jaylen Brown considered guard and a front court, and Jason Tatum wasn't considered guard and front court? For the most part, they're interchangeable on the Celtics, and one is able to be slotted in at guard. You couldn't vote Tatum in as guard. That's the easy fix here because, look, Kyrie Irving's having an awesome season, but if we wanted to go the best 5 guys in the Eastern Conference, to me, it's right there. It's Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Giannis, KD, and Embiid. Yeah. And it's like, and so, yeah, it's just like this weird, I don't know why we're trying to make positions a thing. I understand that you want to, get positions represented in each conference, and maybe
you can't have 5 centers and you can't have 5 guards and that would happen from years where you would just end up with a bunch of 6'5" guys or 6'4" guys, and you can't have that. But I'll tell you what, here's the thing. It's interesting to me that Embiid came in 3rd in the media vote and third in the player vote. So he actually should have made it. The ones that let him down were the Philadelphia fans. He did not get the fan vote. He came in 4th there, which tells me 2 things. One, you're going up against Giannis, who was, of course, going to make it. Kevin Durant, who was, of course, going to make it. And then really you're going up against Jason Tatum, who has the city of Boston and Celtics, the Celtics fans all over the world behind him.
Yeah, the Boston Celtics media propaganda machine.
It's unbeatable. Media propaganda is unbeatable. You're joking, but you're also serious. But also, it shows that the fans themselves were put in that box of exactly. I got to pick from this pile, and it split the vote.
Look, I don't have a problem with just given the parameters and Embiid not making it. It sucks, but, you could have told me anybody. If you said, Durant's not going to be in it, I'm like, all right, I get it. 4 really deserving guys, given the parameters, there's only 3 spots. If you told me Giannis didn't make it, I would have been like, all right. He might be the best player in the NBA, and if he doesn't make if you told me that he wasn't one of the 3 of front court guys in the East, I'm like, all right, I get it. Somebody's just got to miss it. And unfortunately, it was Joel Embiid. So it sucks, but it's just unfortunately the way that it is. The interesting thing is that if Kevin Durant does not come back and participate in the All-Star game, that Joel Embiid might just be a starter anyway as an injury replacement in the starting lineup for KD. So he might get the whole announcement and all that stuff. But I'll tell you this, Joel Embiid doesn't care about being the injury replacement. He doesn't want to be the injury replacement guy. And you mentioned sort of the MVP race thing. This is a little bit of juice for him. And for a guy like Embiid, who has not really had like the narrative backing in the MVP conversation for a few years, like the statistical stuff has been awesome. It just hasn't been as awesome as Jokic over the last couple of years. But now there's kind of like a little bit of a story for him, right? Kind of, I'm the one that got snubbed out of the All-Star because of these lame rules and all these things.
Hey, man.
And now I've got this story behind me. Like, this could be the best thing that ever happened to Joel Embiid in terms of him finally getting that MVP that he's been pretty transparent about wanting.
You know what? It's early in the season, and I think we always forget what the midseason narratives are, but they can propel you to late season narratives, which are the final ones that sort of like get the results. And I think this is exactly how this can and probably will play out. He deserves to be an all-star. The fact that he wasn't puts him, I think, as a sympathetic figure amongst everyone.
Yes.
And now he gets the momentum in the second half of the year of the like, oh, we got to overcompensate here for Embiid. I mean, you remember how he missed the All-Star game? He wasn't even voted. And now he gets a little boost here. So I like it. I'm with you.
Zion Williamson in the West made it as a starter, despite having missed 20 games this year. Look, love Zion. Probably would have made it as a reserve no matter what. Fan vote really helped him out here. But the fact that he's in as a starter, he missed 20 games. Is that fair? Would you have had somebody else ahead of Zion in the front court in the West?
It's tough because the names that you're putting out there are like Anthony Davis, who also missed a lot of time. He was high in the fan voting. You got Lowry, Markkanen, Domantas Sabonis. Have those guys? Sabonis, I think, has the best case in my mind. But to be honest with you, I'm fine with Zion. Zion didn't miss that many. I know he missed some games. He's dominant when he's around, so I'm fine with it.
I would have been okay with Zion or Anthony Davis because both of them, like Anthony Davis was like in the MVP conversation for a couple of weeks, it felt like. And Zion was, like you said, dominant when he's out there. I still probably would have went Sabonis. The Kings, as you and I are having this conversation, are third in the Western Conference. That's good enough to be deserving of having a starter. Sabonis has been so great for them. He's averaging 18 and 12 and 7.5 assists. He's been awesome for Sacramento. I probably would have went Sabonis as a starter, plus the availability thing. He's played 45 games, which is way more than Zion or AD. He's also shooting 60%, so he's super efficient.
They're also
the Sacramento Kings are a great story.
Sacramento Kings number one offense in the NBA. He's the hub of that. He's the central part of that. So I think there's a real case to be made. But at the same time,
he didn't make it because of the fan vote, by the way. Yeah.
What's that?
Sabonis came in 9th in the fan vote.
That's not surprising. I mean,
fifth in player votes and 3 in media. Yeah,
the fan vote is usually a year behind. Like Sabonis and the Kings are having. I think people would be surprised to see where they are in the West standings at number 3. I don't think most people realize that they're always a year behind.
Draymond Green finished ahead of Sabonis in the fan vote. And love Draymond, but come on, this year
you might not realize this, but there are a lot of Warriors fans out there.
Andrew Wiggins didn't make it as a starter this year. All right. So you don't have a problem with Zion. I don't love it. I just feel like
he played 29 games. It's not like he played nothing. He played 29.
I mean, Sabonis was really like, even if I don't know, I just felt like Sabonis was so worthy. This to me was more of a Sabonis snub than I have an issue with Zion getting in, because I thought Sabonis has been so good and so much more available than Zion that to me that like just more than breaks the tie there, if there even was.
I think it's probably I think it's fair. I think it's fair.
All right. Well, Embiid's gonna make it as a reserve. Sabonis is probably gonna make it as a reserve. Who else should be considered locks to make it as Eastern and Western Conference All-Stars? We could have several first-time All-Stars in the Western Conference. We're going to talk about that next. But first, today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by LinkedIn. Let's pull up the copy here, Wes. All right. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, the companies, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all on one platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we're going to talk about this Celtics-Knicks overtime game. Luka Doncic, what's going on with that injury that he suffered? But going back to the All-Star starters, we know who they are going to be now. The coaches are going to go ahead and pick the reserves. I think we already know a few of the locks that are going to make it in. Let's start with the Eastern Conference, and we'll start with Joel Embiid. Obviously, a lock to get it in. In terms of other locks, Adam, here's who I have. I was just sort of going through it.
Let's see.
Jaylen Brown's going to be a lock. He was up there on a lot of ballots as the starting guard. Kyrie Irving ends up getting it in part because of the fan vote.
By the way, Kyrie, #1 in the player vote, #1 in the fan vote, #4 in media vote, which is really, really interesting. I mean, the fan vote, okay, maybe you want to dismiss that. It's fans. #1 in the player vote, really, really interesting to me.
Players really back Kyrie Irving. And I think that's stuff that happened at the beginning of the year made him a sympathetic figure among players too. And, agree or disagree with all that stuff and whatever happened. But players like Kyrie, man, he's a hooper is what they say. But I think Jaylen Brown is a lock to make it as a guard. So I think Jaylen Brown and Embiid are locks. I would go so far as to say that Pascal Siakam is probably going to be a lock.
Oh, he's got to be. I mean,
yeah,
that's
okay.
a lock.
All right. Yeah, that's a lock. All right, good. All right. So we're on the same page.
Man, I can't believe you even made that one. To me is as much a lock as just about anyone. What did he have tonight?
He came in 6th in the fan vote. I don't know. But coaches get it with Pascal Siakam.
Sure.
It shouldn't really matter what the fan vote is. So, all right, Siakam's a lock. I think Tyrese Halliburton is going to be a lock.
What's his game played at? I mean, he played in everything.
He's played enough.
Injury.
He's probably at what, 40 games, 30, 38
Yeah, he's
games?
at 40. You're right. He's at 40. So
okay.
He's comfortable.
So those are my locks. I think one of Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler are going to be a lock. And I don't really know where it's going to go because like you just said a couple minutes ago, people tend to be the fans tend to be a year behind on this. I do wonder if the coaches are going to be a year behind on this. It's really easy to just sort of check off the Jimmy Butler box because it's Jimmy Butler and then only give the Heat one All-Star because they're not really that one of those teams that screams deserving of 2 All-Stars. But Bam Adebayo should be a lock. Like that dude has been awesome this year for the Heat. He's been, as Jimmy Butler has missed games, their most important and most consistent player. He's made a huge leap offensively. He's in the Defensive Player of the Year race and should be. I think he should be a lock, but unfortunately, I don't know that he is. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just my Miami bias, and I just think everybody's out to get us. I don't know.
He's another one that's like the fans had him 11th. Media and players both had him 5th. Yeah. So another. It's always interesting the guys that are real outliers on one of these. Can
we talk about one outlier just like to go off the board really quick?
Sure.
Trae Young, 12th among the player votes. Players don't like Trae Young.
That is interesting. I mean, look, Trae Young is at an interesting point right now as both the Atlanta Hawks and I'm guessing just the general NBA family. It seems to be like at a point where I'm not sure where they're going to go. Atlanta might be rebuilding their roster on the fly. Are they going to rebuild it in his image? 2 years ago was a lock. Like, how does it work around Trae? Are they going to?
And if you try to trade Trae Young, who are the other players on other teams in the NBA going up to their general managers and be like, "Hey, trade for this guy"? Because it doesn't seem like anybody else in the league likes this guy.
Man, for reference, Zach LaVine is higher than him. LaMelo Ball came in higher than him on this list.
And LaMelo Ball's barely played.
It's pretty wild.
It is wild.
Tyler Hero right behind him, just for reference for where everybody is. That's crazy.
Yeah. So those are, I think, the locks, like the actual locks. My locks, personally, I would have Bam Adebayo as a lock. And then From there, you've got 2 more spots in the East as reserves. On the bubble, I would say it's like James Harden, Jimmy Butler, Drew Holiday, DeMar DeRozan, Darius Garland, Jalen Brunson, and Julius Randle. Those are kind of like my
Brunson is making a late push here. Like I think he's getting a lot of momentum. But I think Harden to me is. I'm kind of surprised you have him on the bubble. He would be more close to a lock, I think, for me.
He's probably like my first in from the bubble. I kind of considered making him a lock. Leads the league in assists. He's having a great year, shooting efficiently. He's been awesome. So I would have Harden in, and then if you pushed me to make a selection now, I would go Jimmy Butler as the last guy. Which
man,
would mean,
listen to this Heat bias coming through, man. I can't believe it. Wes, check it out the door, my friend.
Who would you have?
It's a tough one. I mean, I think James Harden to me is just a lock. Jalen Brunson is making this late push. I don't know that I would have him on there, but it is kind of.
Would you have? That's the thing is, would you really have Brunson over Jimmy Butler, considering what Butler gives you defensively? I know it's an all-star game, but that's not like, and they don't play defense, but that's not really the point. The DeRozan to me was the hardest snub. He's having a great year too for Chicago, but like the Bulls are sad and nobody cares about them.
I don't know. Those 3 to me are really tough. I'll be interested to see where they go with it if it comes down to those 3 guys. I think Brunson just is having a little bit of a moment here where, he's got some momentum going his direction.
Yeah, and coaches seem to like him too.
I mean, he's a good player.
Randle's having a great year, but I just don't. He's kind of got that reputation thing, even though he's having a really good year for them. And he deserves to be at least in consideration. The Western Conference. All right, so I think Sabonis is going to be a lock.
Yeah, I think he's a lock. I mean, we almost had him starting. He's a lock.
Yeah, I think Lauri Markkanen is going to be a lock.
I think so too. I mean, it's died down a little bit as Utah has fallen, but he's remained great. But I think I'm with you. I think he's in there for sure.
Almost 25 points a game, 52% shooting, 8.7 rebounds. He's played 46 games. I mean, there's an argument to be made that Markkanen could have started, right? If you wanted to just look at, well, he's got 25 points a game. Sabonis has only got 18 points a game. If you wanted to just stop your analysis there, I guess you could have.
If you stopped right there. Okay.
Right.
All right, let's count both of those guys in. I don't know if I call them locks. Let's go through the guards, I guess, before we can do that.
Well, you're right. I skipped the 2 locks. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who didn't make it over Luka or Steph. I don't really have a problem with that, but I also wouldn't have, if you had Steph on the second team and SGA as a starter, I wouldn't have had a problem with that either. I think Luka was really good.
That's crazy talk, Wes. Come on now, man. Shai's been great, but I mean,
how many more games has he played than SGA's played? What? 44 games. Steph has played 33. SGA's played almost 400
and you're
more
right.
minutes.
And if you go to the standings, they're basically tied, 24 and 24.
Yeah, it's not like the Warriors are like number 1 in the West right now. Yeah, they're basically the same in the standings. And SGA is scoring like 30 points a game on 50% shooting. Like
SGA is a lock for next season for sure. I think he'll start next year. He's just been so great.
So SGA is a lock to make it in. So is Ja Morant. Yep. So we've basically got 4 locks. We got SGA.
There's one more lockout out east or out west, in my opinion.
Really?
I think Damian Lillard is a lock. I mean, he just had a 60-point game again.
I'm with you.
I think Lillard is a lock to be on there.
All right. I agree with you. So that means what? We have 2 more spots. So here's the weird thing with Zion making it on. It kind of it's like the slippery slope thing now. It's like, all right, if you barely played any games, it doesn't matter because now we've sort of opened that door to you. So Anthony Davis, no reason now to keep him off as a reserve. If Zion has basically played the same amount of games as him and he's in there as a starter, you could say the same thing for like the Paul George, Devin Booker, Kawhi, even though Kawhi has like really not played a lot. Jaren Jackson Jr., who's just recently got back in the lineup but hasn't played a lot because he missed basically the whole start of the year. But I'm with you. I think Lillard's a lock, and that gives us 1 more spot. And I think it's probably, or does it give us 2 more spots? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 more spots. So I think it's between on the bubble. I've got Anthony Davis, De'Aaron Fox, Aaron Gordon, your guy, Paul George, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, Jaren Jackson Jr.
Man, it's tough. I honestly think you can make a case for a lot of different guys here. Jaren Jackson Jr. to me is probably the best player of all of these, but he just didn't play the minutes. He missed too much time.
A lot of time.
So I don't know that I could go with him. I do think it's interesting. Like, I don't know what kind of consideration Aaron Gordon will get on this, but I do think it'll be interesting. Denver right now is 2 games up on the 1 seed in the West. They typically Boston might get 3 players. They're definitely going to get 2, maybe 3. And you look at Denver and think they're only going to have 1. And since it's not a consensus, I do think there's something too. Like he has a good case for it. I don't think you can go with the usual suspects: your Draymonds, your Kawhis, your Wiggins, your Paul Georges.
Paul George has had a good year. Paul George has had a good year. If he made it, I wouldn't have a problem with it. What's he got? He's like averaging like 25 points a game. No, 23 points a game on 46% shooting, 38%, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He's having a good year. I wouldn't have a problem with it. He's played what? 34 games. All right. Yeah. I think Anthony Davis is gonna make it. I almost consider him a lock. I don't think he should be, but I just think he's gonna.
That's wild.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's
and
a
so
wild lock. There's nobody that sticks out there. I'm telling you. I mean, Devin Booker to me would have easily been on this list.
Yeah.
I don't know if he
29
games.
As
well.
I mean, he's played as much as Zion, but I don't know. That's what the Zion thing makes it all weird now, because basically you're just all right. If you played 29 games,
maybe that's in there. I might see De'Aaron Fox on the list. I might have him there.
So if De'Aaron Fox, I love De'Aaron Fox. I would love to see him in the All-Star game. But if you get him, if you give the Kings 2 guys, I think De'Aaron Fox has about as strong as a case of Aaron Gordon. So why wouldn't you just go with Aaron Gordon at that point, since he's on the 1 seed? I don't know. It's gonna be crazy to see where the coaches come down on this. For some reason, I feel like it's just gonna end up being Anthony Davis and Kawhi. I just feel like they're just gonna be like, you know what, just put the 2 best players in and move on. And I'm not gonna like it. And I think that's what's gonna happen.
I think you're probably right. I will say this: if we look at the standings in the Western Conference right now, this is less true of the East, but a little bit true. But especially in the West, this decision will be made in a week's time.
Yeah.
New Orleans could be the 4 seed; they could be the 9 seed. Golden State could be the 9 seed, could be the 4 seed. Like the Clippers, we're talking about, can Kawhi get in? Right now, they're the 5 seed at 26 and 24. By next week, are they 30 and 24? Are they 26 and 28? Like that makes a huge difference. And I just wonder how much this final week, more so than most years, how much this final week will sort of like be, well, let's look at the standings. They're the 4 seed. They get the guy.
We should all be rooting for Aaron Gordon to make it, by the way, because, you know, my friend Rohan Nadkarni over at Sports Illustrated reported that basically if Aaron Gordon makes it, he said he'll participate in the dunk contest, but he's not going to do it if he doesn't make the All-Star game. So we should all be rooting for Aaron Gordon to make it, because look, who's the weird G League guy that they threw into the dunk contest? Like, it's that or Aaron Gordon. Okay.
I think Matt McClung is on there as well.
Matt McClung, that's what I'm talking about, the G League guy, Matt McClung. All right.
Hold on. I do want to do this, though. We just talked about Memphis with Ja and possibly Jaren Jackson Jr. He was there. Sacramento. You go through all these teams. Denver, the second best record. Actually, they're a half a game behind having the best record. And we're trying to fit in a second guy. It's interesting to me, the debate back and forth between is Jokic the MVP versus nobody else on their team should be an all-star, but they're the number 1 team in the NBA. Well, hold on a second. What are we doing here? It's almost like the NBA has to pick a lane. Like media voters, everybody has to pick a lane. It's all Jokic and a bunch of role players, or hey, he's got a lot of help.
Wait, are you telling me that basketball media is inconsistent with their takes?
I'm just trying to figure out what the narrative is here. Like he has too much help, but no all-stars. He has no help. Like where are we at?
That's a great question. All right. The Knicks and the Celtics came down to the wire. Jaylen Brown had a chance to win it in overtime. All-star Jaylen Brown. Well, probably all-star. We'll tell you what happened and why it might be time to worry about the number 1 seed Celtics next. But first, today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here, and we're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the number 1 sports book in America. It's FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better because they have so many great features and make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers, join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all of your favorite bets from money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. This weekend, we've got the NFL championship games. The Eagles are 1.5 point favorites over the Niners. I think the Chiefs are 2-point favorites over the Bengals. Just don't overthink it. If you think one of those road teams are gonna upset the home team, just pick them. Go for it. And you can do it at FanDuel, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we're going to get to our countdown here in a minute. But before we do that, let's go to Boston, where the Celtics lost to the Knicks 120-117 in overtime. Jaylen Brown had a chance to win the game in the final seconds after getting fouled by Jalen Brunson, but he missed both free throws, Adam, and the Celtics now have dropped 3 in a row. What did you think of the end of the game? End of regulation was a little crazy, goes into overtime, and then the Celtics drop it there. Knicks come back. What did you think about the end of the game there?
Well, first I thought the Knicks blew it, and then I thought the Celtics blew it. Like the Knicks blew it to get to overtime, and then the Celtics blew it to lose the game. What I'll say is this is 2 games in a row where Tatum has come up short in the end of the game. I mean, we saw in their previous matchup the turnover that went viral, just an absolutely horrible read by him. And then in tonight's game, getting the shot that would have put them ahead, the go-ahead shot at the final buzzer, and not just missing, but kind of missing bad on that one. It's just tough. It's just a tough little fall. The Celtics have been great all year, minus they had a rut a little bit earlier, I think right around the turn of the calendar, and they're kind of back in a little bit of a mini rut as well, I think, here with this loss to the Knicks. The Knicks are good, but
yeah.
They
lost back-to-back games and then won 9 in a row, and now they've lost 3 in a row. So I don't know that I'm concerned about the Celtics, but the Jason Tatum thing is worth having a conversation about, because you mentioned the turnover. That was at the end against Miami. I was there at the game, and he gets trapped up high on the floor and just makes the wrong read. He had was it Derek White kind of right next to him. He could have just dropped it off to Derek White, and Derek White would have had an open-ish kind of shot. He tries to fling it all the way across the court in the corner to Grant Williams, and Tyler Hero's like, "Thanks, I'll just take this." And then the game was, and he steals the ball, and the game's over.
I wouldn't even call that a good steal. That was just like
it was like right place, right time. He was like, "Oh, you're just going to give this to me? Awesome, thanks." And at the end of this one, Quentin Grimes is on him the entire end of the game, doing a great job, sort of fighting over the screens, navigating. It was the second to last possession, so it wasn't the Jaylen Brown one, but I think it was the Jaylen Brown one. Yeah, Tatum brings it up the left side of the floor. Grimes is on him. The Celtics set a screen. Grimes fights over. I'm blanking on the name of the center for the Knicks right now. The guy, Jericho Sims. Jericho Sims switches on to Tatum, and now you and then you've got Grimes and Sims both on Tatum, and Tatum gives up the ball. He didn't commit a turnover, but he wasn't really able to dribble out of it. He kind of picks up his dribble. It's weird. Like Jason Tatum, like one of the big parts of his development that people have pointed to is he's got to be a better playmaker, passer, and all these things. And it kind of feels like maybe there's a little bit of a scouting report on him. Like, hey, if you trap this guy, if you send 2 when he comes up across the screen, you can make him make a mistake, or at least get the ball out of his hands pretty easily. And I thought that was the Knicks game plan at the end. The Knicks were just like, Tatum's not going to beat us, and they didn't let him.
It's the hardest part of any player's development. I mean, honestly, is being able to read the court in those ways. I wouldn't say, though, the book's out on him. The thing I would say is that the Celtics were a very hot team early. They're a very good, well-rounded team, but they aren't a perfect team. And I think earlier in the year, they looked like a perfect team, and it looked like, okay, they're the clear favorites and this or that. I think they're back in the same tier now with the Denvers, the Memphises, whoever else you want, the Milwaukees, the Philadelphias. They're in that same tier now of teams that I think are a little bit underrated. Like we talk about this year as if it's a bunch of scrubs. There's no juggernaut. There might not be a juggernaut, but those teams are all really capable, really good, but they have noticeable flaws.
Luka Doncic in the other TNT game, the late night one, he suffered a left ankle sprain within the first 3 minutes of the game. Kind of weird, came down, tried to do this pivot spin thing that he likes to do. Didn't really look like anybody hit him. I think he just kind of took a weird angle on the pivot, kind of rolled his left ankle there. He goes back into the locker room. X-ray comes back negative, but it is a left ankle sprain, and he then missed the rest of that Mavericks Suns game. So just something to monitor in terms of Luka Doncic. But now it's Friday, Adam, and what we do here on Fridays is we count down to the weekend. What kind of countdown do you have for us today?
Let's just do a quick little look at the weekend slate. This is rivalry week, which I've enjoyed, by the way. Rivalry week.
Yep.
I hope the NBA sticks to this. I think it's a good idea. I'm going to give you, it's not over. We got 3 more days. I'm going to give you the best games on the schedule for you. First up, this was a tough one. I could have included a couple different games, but I went with the Clippers at Cleveland. The Clippers have been on a little bit of an upswing. I mean, they've gotten some wins under their belt here lately.
Mm-hmm.
The Cavs are obviously great. I think that this could be a pretty interesting matchup.
I just enjoy watching the Cleveland Cavaliers. Donovan Mitchell didn't play tonight in their game against Houston, but hopefully he'll be part of this one. And then hopefully for the Clippers, their two best players will be part of this game too, because if they're not, then it's not going to be as fun. But if they are, then we have something interesting.
They should. I mean, they've got, actually, you know what? It is the second night of a back-to-back. I should have looked at this one. They got Atlanta, and it's not even just a back-to-back. It's at Atlanta. They're definitely out. My goodness. I'm going to have to cancel that one from my list. There might only be 4 good games.
Let's go to the fourth one.
Fourth one, Knicks at Brooklyn.
There we go.
Battle for New York. No KD obviously takes a little bit out of this, but Brooklyn's been scrappy and they've been fighting here. And also, it's just always good when these two teams kind of get together. The Knicks, on the other hand, are on a roll right now, so they're riding a bit of a high. But I think this will be a good one.
Who are the best 4 or 5 players on the floor when the Knicks and the Nets play? So I would probably have Kyrie as the best player. Okay. Kevin Durant's obviously not playing.
We're gonna have Brunson, Randall. Man, you're gonna have to go a lot of New York on this one.
Right? Kind of feels like that.
I'll tell you, I don't know if I'm going to count this guy as one of the best guys, but I'll tell you, Nick Claxton's a good player, man.
I really enjoy
Nick that guy. He does his job. He reminds me almost of Jared Allen. Jared Allen's like the ultimate, just does his job, doesn't step outside the lines. He kind of has a little bit of that going as well.
Yeah, I was talking to Nick Claxton earlier this year for a story that I was working on, and I mentioned Jared Allen being like, yeah, he made the All-Star last year with kind of the same case. And he was like, and Nick Claxton was like, yeah, exactly. That's why I think I have a good case to make the All-Star. We didn't even talk about him when we were talking about the Eastern reserves, but probably won't. He's not
an All-Star, so come on, man.
On the bubble.
Yeah. Brooklyn did just lose to Detroit too, by the way, so they kind of need a bounce back. They need a bounce back game. It's crazy that we're also gun shy to say Ben Simmons is one of the best players, but it's fair.
They benched him late in the other night.
Of course. Got to look at the basket. This one is getting in a little bit on legacy, although I actually do think it's an intriguing game. I got Celtics at Lakers.
It's always a good game. Should be celebrity sightings. Where is it? In Los Angeles?
This is in Boston, I believe. Yeah, it's
a little cold this time of year. You might not get any celebrities. But
this is another one of those ABC games. The Lakers, though, have been on a run. Like they're trying to climb back into this as well. They got Rui Hachimura. So
I'm excited for that one.
What's that?
I'm excited for that one. Look, I just like seeing those colors together on my screen. It's classic. Lakers versus Celtics. It's classic. It's LeBron versus Tatum. Like
Davis is back.
Davis is back. You don't have to overthink it. Star power. You've got 4 All-Stars on the court.
I'm legitimately excited for that game. I think it'll be big. The second best game of the weekend, we got New Orleans at Milwaukee.
Ooh,
this one's a little bit no Zion in this game, but you still have a New Orleans team that's scrappy. Brandon Ingram is back. The Bucks have looked okay. The Bucks have looked okay. They're getting their team back together, but it's still like a game with implications. So
what I like about the Pelicans is that they line up every single night thinking that they're going to win that game, and so they don't care that it's Giannis on the other side. They're just going to throw their Trey Murphys and their Herb Jones over at Giannis, and they're going to say, "Beat us."
This is also probably the longest matchup of the season. New Orleans is so long. Milwaukee's so long.
Like lengthwise. Yeah. I thought you meant, for some reason, I thought you were talking about this is going to be the longest game. And I was like, no, it's not the Sixers.
The number one game, they have the Sixers. The number one game, though, of the weekend, hands down, Denver at Philadelphia.
Let's do it.
We got Jokic. We got Embiid.
MVP versus MVP. Let's go.
They've only played each other. It's weird because the Jokic and Embiid have been in the league together for 8 seasons, and they've only played each other 5 times. We've been robbed of a lot of these matchups. Both guys coming in with 2 days rest. They should be well rested, ready to go. It's on ABC. It's a marquee matchup. And by the way, the 2 best teams over the last 25 games, the 2 second best record in the East versus the number 1 record in the West. It's just a good matchup, man. I think it's going to be exciting. I think there'll be a lot on the line. I think both teams will want it. I think both players will want it. Should be a good one.
3:00 Eastern time on ABC on Saturday. In Philadelphia too, which is always fun. In Philly. Love that crowd. Feel good crowd there. All right, that's it. I love that. So we've got the end of rivalry week this weekend. Locked On NBA will be back on Monday with the biggest stories from around the league. But for now, thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen today. Now make your second listen game to game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On game to game. covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great weekend, Adam.
You too.